that on the inside, we're still holding your trust, we're still listening to you, and we will still keep the voices of the public as our #1 priority. Thank you.
Councilmember Cisneros.
This is such an historic moment, and I wanted to just say that it goes beyond talking about police. It really deals with the systemic racism that has existed and institutionalized as part of our culture. And changing values, changing deeply held beliefs, changing culture is not an easy thing. But I am so hopeful, so optimistic, so inspired by how many people have come together, have stood up, who have just been so engaged and vocal and connected with us. It's the most optimistic I've ever felt about this issue, and I just feel like we are at a turning point. This is a different day, that George Floyd's death is different. There have been, a long history of brutal murders of black people and marginalized people, and this is different. And I'm very excited about our future. There is a path forward to a better day tomorrow if we make the right steps, and I believe that we here in Houston are doing that. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. Councilmember Robinson.
Thank you, Mayor Turner, and thank you, colleagues. A day of pride for all of us, I believe, in this great month of Pride awareness. And while black suffering in our neighborhoods and communities are very much on our minds, what I saw today on Council, Mayor, with collaboration between all council members and us working together for a better day for Houston, makes me very proud to represent the city. I am in all of this. We have got a tremendous amount of work going forward, but at the same time, I know we're up to the task, and with your leadership and good work from the council. And I would like to thank Chief Acevedo as well as Ray Hunt and the Police Officers Union. Our rank and file, we're looking out for you while we are looking out for the people of Houston. And this can be done in balance, and we can do it together. Thank you, Mayor.
Councilmember Evan Shabazz.
Thank you, Mayor. My heart is still heavy because I'm still walking with the Floyd family. He was a member of my community at one point. But I am encouraged. This was a very long day, but I'm encouraged, and I'm very appreciative of my colleagues stepping forward for us to give the letter to the mayor. And I'm even more elated that the mayor responded, and he responded immediately. We are committed to this being more than just a moment. We are committed to it being a movement in the right direction. So hopefully the community will trust us and know that we have our best interests, not just yours, because we all represent families that have been greatly impacted or could be. So be mindful that we carry this, and we may keep smiles on our faces under these masks, but we are carrying very heavy burdens, because trust me, when we hear that members of our community have been killed, it is a very heavy burden. So just thank you to the mayor, thank you to all the Chief Acevedo, Mr. Hunt, and all of my colleagues, because this is just the beginning, and I want everybody to understand that it's the input of the community that we need. We sit in those seats to represent. I hear a lot that, oh, we didn't get a chance to come to the table. We didn't get any input. Well, I am committed that that's not going to happen on my watch. You will get a voice. I will listen. And with that, we will come out with the best reforms. Not some that were just put in an emotional blitz, but certainly those that will be substantive and full of substantive and real conversations and reforms for the people of Houston. So thank you so very much.
Councilmember Sally Alcorn.
Thank Thank you, Mayor. And let me just say it's an honor to stand here with my colleagues, and I commend all of you who have pushed these reforms, who have asked the mayor for his executive order. The mayor, I heard you say that you reward a peaceful protest with action, and so that's what we're seeing here today. We're acting on what we've been hearing, and there's a lot more work to do. I'm honored to be in this room with my wonderful colleagues. I can tell that everybody's put a great deal of thought into what reforms are coming, and there will be a great deal more work to do. I have 4 kids in their 20s. They've been in my ear all week. The young people will save us. They are the voice of the future. I don't want my kids to be having this conversation in 40 more years. So for my kids, for everyone, I'm so proud to be here, and thank you, Mary, for this action.
And let me just say, this is not the end. These are steps that have been put in place right now to address, to do some immediate steps, and we still welcome the citizen input. Let me also say that in the absence of people who stood up, marched, demonstrated, protest, this would not be happening. So let me be very, very clear. In the absence of the millions of people all over the country, quite frankly, all over the world, this day would not be happening. So let me thank those who marched, demonstrated, protest, who have made it uncomfortable for those of us in office not to move forward and not to act, and they act with the greatest degree of urgency. So it's not done. We still want to provide opportunities for citizens and others to give their input as we move forward on systematic reforms. So it's not done. These are just the steps that we are taking at this moment, because it is important for us to let people know that we are listening and that we are responding. And we're not just saying cameras gone and we have gone back to the way it used to be. So I want to make that very, very clear. And it was important today for you to hear from all of these council members, because it has been a collective effort and not a singular effort. Now, having said that, before I sign, let me bring up Chief Acevedo.
Good afternoon, everyone. Mayor, council members, first and foremost, I want to say thank you on behalf of the 5,300 men and women of the Houston Police Department, our 1,000 support staff. This is a huge day. And it's a huge day because what you're doing here today is building trust and building legitimacy and breaking down even the perception of bad policing. And there's going to be people that will not want to give you credit, Mayor, will not want to give this council credit, but I can tell you as a police chief that spent 9.5 years in Austin, Texas serving, trying to do our very best to provide leadership. What this will do is that when the next chief comes along, they won't be able in the middle of the night to just sneak off and change the policy. This codifies the expectations of this mayor and this council in terms of what the police department is supposed to be doing, and I think that is a first. And so on behalf of all of us, Mayor, I want to say thank you. On behalf of the Floyd family and the people that we marched with, many of the women and men of the Houston Police Department actually walked with them, marched with them. I want to say thank you, because this is the first body that I'm aware of here in Texas that has taken this action, and we're keeping the promise that we have made as police officers to the family of Mr. Floyd. And so I hope this is just a first step, because when we have these good policies, what we have is trust. We build trust, and with building trust, we build better communities, and with better communities, we create safety for the people we serve and the men and women that we're privileged to lead. So we look forward, Mayor, to the continued conversation, because I think one of the things that we have not done a good job as a department is highlighting the things that we are doing right. the programs that we have where we're a national model for the nation. And I think that education can't be left and to happenstance. It has to be intentional. And I look forward, Mayor, thanks to you and the commission that you put forward, to not just highlight the things that we are doing right, that are national models, but also to identify the things that we can do better. So congratulations. It's my honor, my privilege to serve with you in this council. And to this council, thank you for being involved and engaged in holding our feet to the fire. Thank you.
And here you can see Houston Mayor Sylvester Turner getting ready to sign an executive order that will ban the use of chokeholds by law enforcement. Now, the mayor had made the announcement during a funeral service in Houston for George Floyd. Many of us know already, but he died after a Minneapolis police officer pressed his knee into his neck for several minutes. Mayor Turner said, quote, "What that order will say is that in this city, we will ban chokeholds and strangleholds. In this city, we will require de-escalation. In this city, you will have to give a warning before you shoot. In this city, you have a duty to intervene. In this city, we will require comprehensive reporting." Now, Mayor Turner said the order was drafted by the city attorney, and he's assigning it to be returned to City Hall. And during the service for Floyd, who was raised in Houston, Mayor Turner also announced that he would proclaim June 9th as George Perry Day in the city of Houston. And that's the day before the funeral service in Houston. More than 6,000 people had attended a public viewing, or 6,000 people had attended that public viewing to pay their respects to Floyd. And among those at the church on Monday was Texas Governor Greg Abbott, who told reporters he will include Floyd's family in discussions about police reform and any related legislation. He said, quote, "George Floyd is going to change the arc of the future for the United States. George Floyd has not died in vain. His life will be a living legacy about the way that America and Texas responds to this tragedy." So once again, Mayor Turner and officials signing this executive order, which was drafted by the city attorney, and it will soon be returned to City Hall. Once again, you watch this live with Fox. Thank you to everyone who is here tuning in to get the latest and breaking news that's happening.
A few questions if anyone should have them.
Mayor, can you just talk a little bit about how this executive order came to be, in the sense, last week you announced the task force. That was also after the protests. Was there some kind of meeting this weekend or other event that convinced you to take more immediate changes?
Well, I would tell you, announced the task force and that will be citizen-driven, but it does take time. And what we were also hearing is that people wanted to see some things happen in a more immediate way. Council members, 5 of the African American council members wrote the letter, and I got that and talked with them as well. And they thought it was also important. And then, the marchers, the demonstrators, the protesters, they wanted things. And then there was the push for 8 can't wait. So all of that was taking place. So it is important for us to do some things from an immediate point of view, while the task force is put together and they start their work, while the city council committee process is doing this work. These are some of the things that we can put in place right now as all the other avenues of reform take place.
And then a couple of other kind of things that have been gaining traction, the idea of giving the oversight board subpoena power, and also the police department releasing its narcotics audit. I know the task force will probably look at these things, but those two things that you personally support? Those
are things that require much more in-depth review and are more appropriate for the task force and the committee hearings, more or less, to drill down and to explore, to vet in a much more thorough fashion. And so we're leaving those items for the task force and the committee process.
Do you support them personally, or you're leaving that up to the task force?
I'm leaving things up to the task force. I think what is important, what the protesters and others have said, they want us to listen and not just to be doing things that we think is more, quote-unquote, politically expedient. And so I think it is important for us to listen, to allow them to weigh in on what additional reforms may be required. And so we're going to do just that.
The Harris County DA has dropped charges against 600 people who were arrested at protests. And she says that these arrests were basically just simple civil disobedience. And so I'd like to know if you think that the charges against those 600 people, were they justified? Do you think that they were unnecessary?
I'm not the DA. I'll let the DA speak to that, and I think she has.
HPD arrests. So do you think that those arrests were necessary? Do you think they were justified?
From all indications, they were out there. If they felt the need to arrest individuals, then from a presumption point of view, I would say yes. Now, in the legal process, a lot of steps will take place, and if the DA drew the conclusion that the charges should be dropped, that's the DA's call. Okay.
Mayor, at the signing of this, prior to yesterday, the union put out a statement pointing out that chokeholds have never been part of the police department's general order. That even though you clarified the language here, it was never something that was taught in the academy. At the same time, the Black Lives Matter folks, they had a protest this morning outside City Hall. So you have a lot of people who are saying, this looks great, it makes one feel good, but when you're looking at the actual policy, it doesn't actually change a lot of things. What do you say to that criticism?
Well, but if they're saying if it wasn't in policy, it is now in policy, and Black lives do matter. But you can't, if you're saying it doesn't exist, and what I was hearing, make it a part of the policy. Well, we've made it a part of the policy. People were saying, we're looking at the 8 can't wait, and we don't check, when we're looking at the city of Houston, we can't check the box. Well, you can now check the box. So if you're saying we should put it as a part of the policy, at the highest level, it doesn't get any higher than my executive order as the mayor of the city of Houston. So we are making it very clear. The policy in the city of Houston is that chokeholds, strangleholds are not allowed. That anytime you're using deadly force, it needs to be reported. Okay? That if an officer sees another officer violating policy or doing something wrong, you have a duty to intercede. And that where you can give a verbal warning, where practical, before using deadly force, do that. You're expected to do that. When it comes to confronting people, you have a duty to try to move to de-escalate. Okay. With respect to moving vehicles, you can't be firing at moving vehicles unless it's imminent body injury to yourself or someone else. Those are the things that people have said. We want to be in your policy. And we're doing that.
Councilmember Leticia Plummer, as you know, she had a whole long list. She's not here, but I guess she said Rome wasn't built in a day. What do you say to all her amendments that were soundly defeated? Was it all bad ideas, going too far, not too fast? What do you say about that?
Well, part of that was in her amendment initially were the things included in 8 Can't Wait. They are now in the executive order. We were listening. On the Chokeholds program, the council members weren't saying no to that. We said that we needed to vet it. We've looked into the Chokeholds program in Oregon. There are 2 vans. City of Houston is much, much bigger. So we're not saying no. I do know that HPD already has a crisis intervention program, and we've had it in place since 1998. Now, can we improve it? Should we expand it? Yes. But let me also say this. We have asked police department and police officers to do a lot. We asked them to deal with people with mental behavioral health issues. We asked them to deal with people with substance abuse. We asked them to deal with people who are homeless on our streets. We have asked them to do a lot. And what I've said to people in our business community is that we need to be doing more of those things and not asking our police officers to try to be the social representatives on everything. But one of the reasons why? Because historically, in this city, in this state, in this country, it's been easier to get dollars for law enforcement than to get dollars for those who are homeless on our streets, or to get dollars for investments in communities that have been underserved and under-resourced. And that needs to change. And when we invest in these communities, then we won't have to ask police officers to do all of these other things. So, quite frankly, police are getting hit and criticized for things that the greater society has not been willing to do. And that's unfair. And so what I've said to people in our business community and others, it is time to invest in communities where we are lifting people up and providing kids with opportunities in these communities that have been underserved. And if we make the investment in these communities, then we don't have to spend so much with police, because we're meeting the needs of people in these communities. But society's priorities need to shift. Okay? And from my vantage point, police have we've been criticizing them, but the system has asked them to do more than they should be asked to do. And that needs to change. That needs to change. And that's what I'm hoping that the business community and others in this city will help us to do. Let's invest in things, in communities and neighborhoods to give them, so that every neighborhood is the neighborhood of opportunity and inspiration. And if we do that, we won't have to invest so much in law enforcement.
We have time for a few more questions from the floor. Mr. Mayor, some community activists are saying the reform measures don't go far enough. What would your response to them be?
We're not saying that we are done. Look, if we don't do anything, then people criticize us for not doing anything. So this is not the end. This is just a step in moving forward. We still need to we want to hear from people in all of these city council districts and throughout the city of Houston. And we want to provide forums for them to give their ideas, their thoughts. And this is a work in progress. Nobody is taking a victory lap. Okay? We're not taking a victory lap. This is many different laps. Okay? You cannot reverse systemic neglect and racism in one day by the stroke of one pen. Systemic racism is embedded, and you've got to work intentionally to dig it out. It's not done just by signing a document, but at this moment, that's what we can do, and that's what we are doing. But we're not done. We're not done. And so that's what I would say. Nobody is taking a victory lap. We're simply saying we have taken another significant step, and there are more steps that need to be taken to really advance the cause of justice.
Just to expand on that HPOU comment that I think is confusing some people is which of these tactics today were already part of police officer training, whether they were written in the policy or not? That might be a question for Osvaldo.
Chief. And I certainly want to acknowledge Ray Hunt at the union for being present because they have been just an excellent partner with us. So thank you so very much.
You know, I have to express a little frustration because I don't think people understand what's happened here today. I served in Austin for 9.5 years. I put things in place, and some of those things after I left were changed. What's happened here today, regardless of whether it's existing or it's new, is that all the rules have just been read, all the requirements that have been signed by this mayor cannot be changed by a future chief without coming through the mayor's office, cannot be changed in the dark, cannot be changed overnight. It has to come back to this mayor or the next mayor or 10 mayors from now. It requires action that will be public, and the document will be filed for everyone to see. So I think this is a huge watershed moment, and I think if you look at the city of Houston, this is a first for this city. And I think that once again, we're leading the nation in terms of how we make things better. And for that, Mayor, I want to say again, you know, people that want to find fault will always find fault. But I like to think that we need to look at the glasses half full, and we're on our way to filling it all the way to the top with accountability here in the city of Houston.
Let me thank you also very, very much. And then did I give the numbers on COVID-19? It's 160. I'm sorry, but there are over 160 new cases been reported on COVID-19 today, 3 additional deaths. The number goes up to 146. And so the number of COVID positive cases in the city continues to tick up. So just bear that in mind. Please continue to wear your mask, engage in social distancing, and engage in proper hygiene. Thank you also very much.
All right, so once again, that executive order did get signed today by the mayor. Officials there along his side. He had made this announcement in Houston at the funeral for George Floyd, again, who had died after a Minneapolis officer pressed his knee into his neck for several minutes. And this now order going to be returned to City Hall. We do still have a protest happening out in New York City. Here's a look at our photographer in the middle of this crowd as they were listening to some different speakers talk and obviously share their stories. So I did want to just say thank you for being here with us on Fox. We do appreciate each and every single one of you tuning in, whether it's on a Samsung device, on coronavirusnow.com, or possibly even with us on our YouTube page. If you're with us on YouTube, don't forget you can subscribe to our page. That way you stay up to date on all the latest news. I'm sure you just heard our announcement. Our box is pretty loud next to me, so I'm